obviously the title of the book's Greenlights. I remember seeing you at the Film Hall of Fame Awards, like 2012 maybe. You had just
Yeah.
and you gave a speech, and you mentioned how you enjoyed moving back to Austin because there were more green lights here. And I later,
Did I say that then?
yeah, I
There we
said,
go.
and I told somebody, I said, McConaughey's going to write a book someday, and it's not going to be called Just Keep Living. It's going to be called Green Lights, because this is.
You called it. There it is.
So for people that haven't read the book or haven't heard the speech, what's the metaphor?
Yeah. So like this cover. So green lights, we love green lights, right? They're freedom. They affirm our way. They say, go, proceed, attaboy, continue. We don't like yellow and red lights. They slow us down and stop us, get in our way. We can engineer green lights in our life by choices we make. Sometimes green lights just fall in our lap in good fortune. Sometimes green light can be just what your perspective is in a certain situation. Sometimes you get a green light by denying there's actually even a crisis there. No, that's false trauma. I'm not even going to give that damn thing credit. I'm not going to let it become a red or yellow light. I'm going to blow through it because it's not real. And then finally, the symbolism is about, and I found this in going through my journals, is that all the red and yellows, almost every red and yellow light I had in my life, every time I had a hardship or a crisis, it revealed itself to have green light assets or became a green light later on in life. That's what the metaphor is. It's green lights is not about making everything a green light. Green light is also about understanding how red and yellow lights, interventions, hardships, pauses, introspections we have in our life where we need to recalibrate, how that's how you engineer a red or yellow light into becoming a green light later on. Or sometimes they just reveal themselves to be green later on. I think we notice them in the moment. I think we notice them sometimes tomorrow. Sometimes we notice them next week, next year. Sometimes we're going to notice them on our deathbed. I even believe that some red and yellow lights in our life will not be revealed green until our great-great-grandkids figure out what the lesson is 2 generations from now. But it's a constant process. And I do believe that eventually all the yellows and reds will turn green.
I see it's a #1 New York Times bestseller.
Yeah, just found that out, man. It feels good. It means it's translating, and being received well. Yeah.
Is it how long you've been keeping journals, and how long you've been writing? That all started for you?
About 36 years. Started when I was like 14. Started off writing the funny things that a young teenager will write in a journal. Why did Gretchen break up with me? And why do I have pimples on my face and stuff like that, trying to figure stuff out. And then maintained it through my years. I had a big writing year in my year away in Australia because I was the only one I could actually, I was there. I was the only one I could talk to. So
that sounded like a rough year.
It was a rough year. They're probably one of my roughest years, but probably in hindsight, one of my most important years for sure as well.
You said it was kind of the first year that you had serious introspection in your life.
Yeah. I mean, I had always been an extroverted kid. I mean, we were raised on, don't read a book or don't watch TV when you can get out there and do it yourself. That's sort of how our mom kind of raised us. So, I was coming out of high school where I was extremely extroverted. I mean, like I would made straight A's. I was dating the best looking girl at my school. I had a 4 handicap. I just made 2 holes in ones 11 days apart. I had a job, $40 in my back pocket, had a car that was paid for, just one most handsome, no curfew. I was rolling. And then I show up in Australia and all that came to a screeching halt. I was out in the middle of the country living with this family that was odd, to say it lightly. And I didn't have any of those things. And so I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car. I didn't have my golf clubs. Did have a curfew all of a sudden again. And I just got in a habit of, I was forced to write because I didn't have anybody else to check in with and rely on to figure out what the hell was going on. So I had to figure it out myself.
It kind of seems like that started a streak of, or continued or amplified a streak of self-reliance in your life. That's kind of been a touchstone that you go back to.
I think so. Definitely. I mean, what I learned in that year is I was never going to come back early, even though before I went, I was told by the Rotary Club, you're probably going to get homesick and want to come back. I said, no, I'm not going to come back. I'm going to do this for the full year. And even while I was going through hell, I had in my back pocket, my mind, like, there's a reason for this. Don't pull the parachute yet. Hang in there. You'll come out the other side. And that's helped me along the way now. And I've taken many different, I often take little ventures of solitude to go places. And I don't always enjoy the company. It is hard, but I've learned to, just stick with it. And if you are, for me, if I am uncomfortable with my own company, well, that means I probably need to go spend more of it until me and me work it out and come out the other side and shake hands that, hey, I'm the only person I can't get rid of. So we might as well figure out how to get along. And that's been very helpful through my life to take those trips along the way.
When you talk about, not to jump too far ahead in the book, but at a certain point you talk about an existential crisis, of more of an existential challenge, I think you call it. And then you talk about how it prepared you to kind of take the wheel yourself. And I wonder, narratives that you use to frame the understandings you have in life, do you have them when they're happening, or do you look back and reframe it that way?
It's a little bit of both. Look, sometimes I'll notice them when I'm in the situation. Sometimes it is in hindsight where I'm removed from it and I'll go, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, that was the lesson that was in that moment that felt like a yellow or a red light in my life. Sometimes I'll notice it when I'm in it. Like, I did not know in that year in Australia what the lessons were going to be, but I had a real hunch that, okay, there's something really valuable out of this sort of penance that I'm in and I put myself in. There's something valuable in being stripped down and not having any of the things that you relied on before. That sparseness, to have that and have myself be the only person I could rely on, but still not even know who the hell I was. Was I a reliable source to rely on? Hell, I didn't know half the time, but I had no one else to have the dialogue with. Later on, I think the one you're speaking of is there was a couple of years where I really challenged the existence of God in life in general and in my life, but more so than challenging God's existence, it was a time to challenge myself, because I felt like I was letting myself off the hook for things that maybe I shouldn't. I felt like I needed some self-reliance, self-determination. And if I was going to turn the page, I needed to make sure I was solid, that my two hands were on the wheel in choosing who I was and where I went.
You mentioned some specific people in your life in New Mexico when you go to the monastery, and a book you read in college. I think it's called The Greatest Salesman in the World.
In the world, yeah.
You talk about some important people or touchstones, guidestones in your life. Do you keep your own counsel? Like, what do you go to as kind of foundational texts or people, and what kind of reaffirms your personal belief system?
Yeah, good question. I have a group of male friends who we all get together and talk naturally about culture, who we are as men, how can we be better men individually, talk about fatherhood, three things that culture, fatherhood, and how to be a better man are three things that have always interested me and continue to, and I'm continuously trying to work on that. So a lot of times, like in that Brother Christian story, you can share a problem and just hearing somebody go, hey, yeah, me too, is like, because I thought I was the center of the world. I thought it was an original crisis I was going through. Oh, this is part of human being. This is part of being who we are. Great. And sometimes that just helps. Other times, someone will share an experience of their own, which I hope is what a lot of people get out of this book. You're not going to have the exact same experience I had, but hopefully you can see an experience that is similar to one you've had in your own life and go, oh, maybe there was a green light asset in that. Or for instance, I've kept things in my journal of times when I was extremely happy, of times when I felt extremely satisfied, of times when I was actually catching green light after green light on a roll. And those have proved valuable because we eventually are going to run into a rut again. And I was able to go back when I was in a rut and look back at, hey, what were your habits when you were rolling? Who were you hanging out with? What were you eating? where were you going? How much sleep were you getting? What were you drinking? How are you waking up and greeting the day? And it helped me recalibrate at times to get back on track. I pray. I try to break a sweat once a day, which gives me a demarcation between all the responsibilities I have. And as you probably know, in middle of fatigue, you can find some real clarity sometimes, and also get rid of a lot of stress with that. And then my family, you know, my wife and I are very close. She's also my best friend, so she knows me very well, and does everything she can to promote the best in me. And she can help me out if I'm questioning things, or we can work it out together, you know. And then sometimes I've worked things out by actually helping somebody else out, you know, helping them get through something and realizing, oh, actually, that's kind of an answer you needed too at the time. McConaughey.
I told somebody, they asked what the book was like, and I said, you know, I've talked to Matthew a few times over the years. I've seen all of his work, at least in the McConaissance, and you know, you get drips and drabs, and I was like, this is kind of drinking it by the fire hose. And I said, but as much as it's me centric, it's also sharing. So I kind of described it as an aggressive vulnerability. So like, as you talked about your group of friends, is part of the book not just to talk about your exploits and celebrate what you've done or contemplate in a public forum, but also to hopefully elicit in other people an understanding or a reaction that they see in themselves?
I hope so. I mean, look, something I found in the book that surprised me, but now when I say it, I'm like, oh, well, of course, because it's the same way. And I think most art, the more personal I got, the more aggressively vulnerable I got, the more relatable the stuff became. And that became obvious to me while I was doing it. But it was surprising that, oh, the more into the I go, the more into the we, this is relatably understood. That did surprise me. But then afterwards, in saying it, you know, Richard Linklater and I were talking about, we were like, well, of course, if I look back at all the work I've done, of roles I've played, of what an artist does, a creation, the more personal they get, actually, the more relatable it can become. There is a difference between art and self-expression. I was not heading out here to just go, hey, if I just gave you my diary form, if you had seen this at 36 years of diaries, you'd been like, well, come on, this needs some form. You know, I mean, there's a lot of it in there is self-expression that was brutally honest, but not relatable. So I didn't want to share anything that couldn't be one, true, but also not. I wanted it to have a chance to be constructive. As I said, objectively taken from somebody, but subjectively used. Like I said, no one's going to have the exact same stories that I have, but I think you'll be able to see, oh, yeah, I had a similar time in my life where I was going something like McConaughey's going through, and how did I handle that? Or is there an asset from that time? Or how to handle things when things are going great. I've got that chapter in there, the art of running downhill. Boy, I know not just myself, I've seen other people. When things are going great, they face plant and self-sabotage in sometimes foolish ways. And I've done that. So, you know, hopefully it is applicable. And I did notice that the more personal I got, the more relatable to more people that it became.
Talking about your roles, you know, you see part of you in everything, whether it's, you know, the girls in the weed and Wooderson, whether it's the sense of justice and Buddy Deeds, whether it's the charisma of Dallas and Magic Mike. Do you find yourself in these characters, or are you imbuing these characters? Because some of them seem like they're deeply connected to a part of you.
Well, good. I hope that's how they feel, because every one of them, and I would say definitely my best work is when I can find that much more of myself in the character. It's for me, and I've said this for years, but it's we've all got everybody in us. We've got every human trait in us. All right. I've got everyone, any character. My job is to go, you know, represent humanity through my characters, not to judge them, but to represent humanity and hang my hat on that character's humanity. Now, where do I find that? Well, first I find out from the page who's the person, but then I very quickly get into who is that in me? What part of me is that? So it's like the old 70s equalizers. You just re-equalize. Oh, well, I've got a lot of that Saturday more irresponsible side. For this character in the beach home, we're going to turn that way up. You know, for this character, Buddy Deeds and Justice, we're going to really turn up the volume on your sense of righteousness and code and honor, McConaughey. We're going to really turn that up and turn these other ones down. So it's always a recalibration like an equalizer for every character to find, and that part of myself integrated through the character. But the more of me I find in myself, the better the performance, I think.
The speaking of finding yourself in characters, finding certain characters in yourself, you open up talking about your family, which was a pretty intense situation. You know, you write an incredible cinematic scene, a lot of very cinematic. I think you'd probably be a screenwriter before you might be a director. I'm not sure, but the cinematic scene of your parents fighting in the kitchen, you know, they're twice divorced, 3 times married, or is it 3 times? Yeah, twice.
Yeah, ended up married. Yeah.
And ended up married. You know, your mom has this sense of kind of wheels off recklessness or self-confidence or something. And then what do you take from her? And then what do you take from your dad as well, who wasn't?
Yeah. Well, look, mom and dad both, and I think this is a trait that was instilled in us, a resilience, optimism, resilience, endurance, love, don't hate. Love like I write this in the book. Some things that tickle us bruises others. You know, and that's how I write about the loophole of the golden rule. Do unto others, you'd have them do unto you. Well, not everyone wants to do what you want to do. You know what I mean? One man's appetite's another's indigestion. Now, we were raised with a great appetite for all the colors of life. The hard stuff, the hands that hurt were the hands that healed. You know, and that was part of the humanity. Always surrounded in the bubble of love. The bubble of love that we had in our family could never be punctured or actually broken by those acts of my mom and dad fighting with the 12-inch kitchen knife. They couldn't be punctured by those, you know, fights that my older brother had with my dad, or instances that I have with my dad. And the ways I got disciplined, I always tell those as love stories. And I think that's why, because they're moments you think like, oh, this is going to break down. This is going to have a bad ending. This is going to end in a proverbial divorce. But it never did. It always ended in a marriage. It always ended in, after the fight, making love on the floor. It always ended in hugging it out and crying with each other and going, I love you. And we're not, and you couldn't leave a situation of discipline or corporal punishment. You couldn't leave that situation until you all hugged it out and cried about it and said, I love you. So that was non-negotiable. The other things were negotiable. And, you know, have I amended my ways of how I discipline my children now different than my father and mother? Yes, I have. But still, the one consistent, the non-negotiable thing is, whatever the manner, the love is never negotiable.
Yeah, so, you know, you've got 3 kids, and I would imagine the love from your childhood is present in your kids' lives. I would imagine the tenor, or you know, some of the drama is not there. So what did you learn from that you didn't want to replicate, or how are your kids' childhoods different than yours was in that regard?
Well, we discuss a whole lot more than my parents would have discussed with us. I mean, I grew up, you know, and this was a different generation, but my parents were a generation of why? Because I said so, period. So we have a lot more discussions in our family. And I don't know if this is a reaction. I don't think it is consciously, but it might be a reaction to how sort of volatile my mom and dad's relationship was. They loved a storm. Their relationship was a storm in the Pacific. They loved that. That's what they needed to feel alive, to feel passion. That's what my mom says to this day. I needed that to communicate. She's the one that started all the fights with my dad. He didn't start them. She started them. I mean, it wouldn't stop until he fought back. Mind you, she's 5'4". He was 6'4", 260. It was not a fair fight. And I remember him saying, it's not a fair fight, Kay. Why do you keep picking it? And her going, come on, you know? That I don't choose, neither Camilla and I choose to have that rocky of a relationship. And we, you know, understood that going in. We prefer more of a nice moving river with a few rapids here and there, but mainly it's got a through line that's going to keep going. We don't need that tidal wave or that Bermuda Triangle that my parents enjoyed. You know, I still try to instill the exact same values that my parents instilled in us. If you look in the book, I mean, my first time I got disciplined was for not answering to my name. on a playground park in kindergarten. The
I don't
second
like the
time,
name Matt either.
right? I mean, you know, and I for this day, I've taken the patience to go, Matthew, please, Matthew, please. And if they go, why? I go, trust me, my mom really doesn't like it. And then, you know, the second one was for saying I can't. Third one was for saying I hate you to my brother. And the fourth one was for lying. Well, there are values instilled in those. So what do I learn? Answer to your name. Say you're having trouble doing something to say and believing you can't. Love, don't hate, and don't lie. Four pretty good values. And butt whoopings that I had earned at the time, and I understood what mom and dad were trying to instill in me. I remember my dad one moment after the first time I got in trouble for saying I can't. And I'd kind of forgotten the lesson, evidently, because I was out ready to do my Saturday morning chores, and one of those was mow the grass and weed eat the yard. And I was having trouble getting the lawnmower started. 1 crank, 2 crank, 3 crank, 4 crank, not getting started. I go inside. Dad, can you help me? I can't get the lawnmower started. And I saw his molars meet. And he looked at me for a minute, kind of shut his eyes with a delayed blink, got up off the bed, walked with me out of the bedroom, through the kitchen, out through the garage, around the back, under the shed where the lawnmower was. Without saying a word this whole time. He leans down, he cranks the lawnmower a few times, it doesn't start. He looks around, gets a screwdriver, finds the gas tube that had come undone, hooks it back up, pumps the gas in there, finally starts the lawnmower. With the lawnmower running right there, he comes over to me and he just looks me straight in the eye and he goes, you see, buddy, you were just having trouble. And I went, yes, sir, got it. And he was right. I was. And that's the day I realized that, oh, even if you are unable to do something on your own, that still doesn't mean you can't. You can seek help, to have somebody help you out, to show you how to hook the gas line back up and start the damn lawnmower. It was a really good lesson. So there were always values instilled. And I've said this before, you could say, you know, damn, can you get your mouth washed out? But if you said can't or hate, you got a butt whoop. And those are two, if you're going to say what's a better reason to get it that has a value instilled in it, those are pretty two good reasons.
You dedicate the book to the only thing I ever knew I wanted to be, and your family. And that thing, spoiler alert, is to be a father. Why is that the only thing you ever knew you wanted to be?
Yeah. So my dad was big on sirs and ma'ams, please and thank yous. And, you know, when he would introduce me to his friends from the earliest of ages, it was, you know, shake their hand, look them in the eye and say, nice to meet you, sir. Well, around 8 years old, I remember he'd introduced me to 3 of his friends, and I remember looking up to him, shaking their hand, going, nice to meet you, sir. Nice to meet you, sir. Nice to meet you, sir. And at that moment, in my 8-year-old mind, the common denominator of every man that I had said sir to, besides understanding, my dad said it's respect for elders, which I understood. The common denominator was they were all dads. And I remember in my mind going, oh, that's when you've made it. Oh, that's when you're really a sir. That's when you've succeeded in life. And from that day forward, it was always clear to me, I want to be a father. That's the one thing I know I want to be. And now I am.
Is it because you get skin in the game in some way and kind of the greater narrative of the world? I mean, you're part of something that's been going on for however
you know,
long.
now I can explain it better now that I have children. I mean, the first thing is, in a way, you know, a father becomes immortal. A mother does too, in ways, but a parent becomes immortal. But in one way, there's an immortality in having children. On a very Darwin level, you have procreated. You've evolved the species. You're surviving. You know, for me, that's like I said, that's when I felt like, now I've made it. Now everything else is number 2. Everything else, the career is in second place. That's the most important thing. And that's the greatest thing that a man can leave behind is his children. Now, what kind of example are they going to be that they leave behind? Well, as parents, as a father, we have a lot to do with what kind of individuals they become. So that's why I have the reverence for fatherhood and always have. I think it's the job with the most responsibility of any in the world, and one that I think more of us could take more seriously more often.
Well, as somebody who just found out that he's going to be a father for the first time at the age of 45, what
Yes.
what's the one piece of advice you'd give me?
Well, let me give you a couple here. One,
Okay.
you're gonna learn that how much it's more DNA than you thought.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, right, but you'll see. I mean, that's the first one that got me. I was like, oh, they kind of are who they are. But here's the other thing, and I bring this up in the book. But man, when are you expecting?
May 1st.
All right, from May through January of 22. Any instincts you have, career-wise, investment-wise, relationship-wise, don't double down on them. Triple down on them. Man is never more masculine than right after the birth of their firstborn. And I don't mean macho. I mean clarity, whether your head and your heart and your body, loins to your heels are going to be so synchronized that instinctually you're going to be so more tuned in. Man is never more tuned in to the right frequency than in that time right after his firstborn.
And you got your firstborn, Levi, was 2008?
8, yeah.
And so, the McConaissance, for lack of a better term, happened around 2010. So
yep,
you were shifting in there. You learned
100%.
the power. Yeah, you learned the power of yes when you were young and applied that pretty well. But then you started using the power of no. I assume all that stuff was not a coincidence.
Not looking back. I mean, when we look back at the end of our lives, it all is the science looking back. The mystery's going forward. But no, looking back at that and going, hey, I'm going to take a sabbatical from the work I've been doing in rom-coms, which ended up being almost 2 years, to Camilla having Levi and us making our first child. That all is part and parcel with, a clarity that came to me and a confidence that came, an awareness too, that came to me at that time. Definitely. And look, having Levi immensely helped me get through that 2-year sabbatical I was on of not working, where I felt quite wobbly at times, well, quite insignificant at times. Having Levi and going, yeah, but you just achieved your dream. You've just become the one thing you always knew you wanted to be. I still needed my personal, a man still needs a personal thing to do, to accomplish and have something to look forward to and build every day outside of their family. But boy, that was something that I remember saying to myself, when you do get wobbly, or when you do, the days are taking too long, or when you do look over at the bottle a little too early in the day, look at your son and go, there's no way to spend too much time loving that human right there, being the best father you can to that newborn human. And so it did help me keep an anchor during that time.
Probably your most famous line is one word repeated, all right. Yeah. You wrote impromptu on set with Linklater. You call that your launch line for that character. And when you get into a character, you find a launch line in these scripts for these people. That's who that guy is. What's your launch line, and do they refresh?
Like for me?
Yeah, for you personally.
In life?
Yeah.
Well, the one that I go to often, and again, I love finding a line, as you see through the book, there's many bumper stickers. They're sort of informal aphorisms. What I like about them is they don't tell you what to do, but you can scale them. You can take them into different situations and see how they apply similarly and differently in many different situations. That's what I really kind of get off to finding. I'll hear someone will say something. You may say something, and somebody will be like, oh, that was a great turn of the tongue right there. That sounds like the title of an album. Let me take that into life and go apply that and see how life reverbs back to me. See what I get back from it. If I get a like response back from it. For me, the one that's never gone out of style is the one that came to me after my father died, which is Just Keep Living. I mean, I've not found a situation that the Just Keep Living choice is not the best one to make and the truest one to make at the time. So you go, oh, that's really oblique. What do you mean? It's more than just saying choose the life affirming choice, but it is a lot about saying, hey, what else are we going to do? So getting through a hardship going, well, here we go. That line has helped me giggle at times where I'm going like, it's so frustrated and I'm in a rut. It's helped me giggle and go, Oh, just keep living, man. Here we go. Ride the bull. You know, it's a rodeo. You just got bucked off. Here, it's part of the deal. And that's helped give me courage and energy to get back up many times. It's also given me confidence to go, no, I know what I want in this situation and I'm going after it, because if I fail, so what? It's all life. We're just living it. Well, who cares? You know, and I love doing this. One of the things that helps me measure a lot is if I'm feeling, you know, maybe I'm in a rut, maybe I'm off frequency, or at the same time, maybe I'm having great success and my ego is getting a little bit embellished, right? I'll jump into that Google eye in the sky and have a look at the planet Earth and find my little tiny dot on it and see it revolving, and then go through the hands of time and the thousands of years that have been before and the thousands that'll come later. And in that spot where I'm like, oh, okay, what you're doing, who's really keeping score, the score you're keeping, no, it doesn't really matter. And in that moment is where I've learned to find, and I didn't look for it, it started to happen. Oh, this is why everything matters. So while in the moment of saying, oh, this, I'm realizing my insignificance, is when I noticed that, oh, everything does have significance. And that's very inherent to what Just Keep Living means and how I'll apply that and change my perspective on things.
You talk about the science of satisfaction.
Yeah.
So, doctor, what's the science of satisfaction?
Well, part of it is, what do we need to be satisfied? We need to have something to look forward to. In all my travels, that's the most I can understand about, at least for me, having something to look forward to, a reason to get out of bed in the morning. So green lights does not mean I just want a whole life full of nothing but green lights. Green lights involve being stopped at reds and having to slow down during yellows, and then learning a lesson in those times. If life's all nothing but green lights straight ahead, you don't get a red or yellow, it's all in it. What's it for then? It's entertainment, no more than that. And what? We're going where? Where's the evolution? Where's the growth? Where's the ascension? It's a long, flat desert, 4-dimensional. Go where you want to go. There's no form or structure to that. So in the name of evolution, we can create green lights. We can be kind to our future selves. We can tee ourselves up today. We can tee ourselves up tomorrow via our actions and choices we make today. All the way down to the simplest damn thing of putting your coffee in your coffee filter the night before, so tomorrow morning all you gotta do is press the button. That's a simple, practical green light. The next morning, how happy are you? Put the damn filter, you'd have to go searching around for it. You know what I mean? It's like, I teed myself up for a little bit of ease. We can make choices in our relationships. We can make choices if we decide to go lie, cheat, and steal, which some would say, oh, that's more selfish because they get what they wanted right then. I would argue that is not selfish. Because why? Because later on, in the compounding assets of our future, everywhere we go, we got to look over our shoulder to see if that person we lied, cheated, and stole from is in the room. So now we're taking up our time and we're stressing because, oh, geez, oh man, he is here. I got to sneak out the back door. That's a yellow light. So by doing certain things, we can create discomfort and lack of freedom in our future. So what are the choices? It's also a balance between responsibility and freedom. The responsibility of freedom and the freedom that can come with responsibility. All in the name of that delayed gratification of teeing up more green lights for our future. And then we got to read between which ones of those green lights. Like if it was all green lights on the highway, as I was saying earlier, a lot of those green lights are battery powered. They're going to go out. What are these solar powered green lights that are going to burn and shine green in our future and after we are gone? And that's when I lead into, it's a great practice to go, what are they going to say at my eulogy? You know, it's not a morose feeling. It's like, think about it. If you can't go that far in your mind, go 5 years ahead of right now. Go 10 years ahead of right now. Go interview yourself. Let your 10 years from now interview yourself now. About what kind of father you're going to be and what kind of father you've been over the next 10 years. It's a cool practice. And it will actually, I've noticed, instead of being like, oh my God, I've got to die, it actually makes you feel more alive and take more responsibility for yourself now in the present time. So I have found that there is a science to satisfaction. I don't have it all figured out. I say this frequently through the book. I'm not making straight A's and all this stuff. You know what I mean? I have crossed some truths that I believe to eternally be true. That does not mean I'm making straight A's out of them. I'm working at them all the time, fail at some of them all the time too. But I
You
found some consistency of where, oh, I understand why I failed. Look at that. I didn't remember that. Oh, I see why I found gratification and satisfaction in this situation. I actually followed that thing that I learned.
You talked about teeing yourself up. I think, not to, the whole never let them see you sweat. I think people think, well, here's McConaughey, he's the coolest guy walking on two legs. It's so easy. But in the book, you make it kind of clear that to steal a phrase, it's hard bleeping work making it look this damn easy.
Right. Well, that's what the work's for.
Right.
I mean, that's what it is. I'm a big preparer.
Where did you learn that?
Well, I learned it actually one of the places I learned it. I was instilled it by my parents, but one specific situation I learned it from was the embarrassment and pain I felt at a time when I didn't prepare. And it was that movie where I decided get the bright idea about not looking at the script or studying the scene, and I show up just gonna be my man and wing it like I did in Dazed and Confused, and all of a sudden I got a 4-page monologue in Spanish, and I'm like, oh how do I get myself out of this one? And the embarrassment of that situation is something I did not ever want to feel again. So from that day on, I said, no, you will be so prepared. And I've learned, like anything in life, sports, even in arts, you prepare early so you can play when you're in the game. Prepare early. So that's the work. The work I do is preparation. So when I'm in the game and I'm on set or I'm out in life, I can be easy. I can go, if you and I are having a business meeting, if I didn't study to understand what we were talking about so I could get what I wanted out of this business meeting, I have a less chance of getting it. If I'd have prepared for it, then I can let's go. Now I'm ready. Now this will be fun. I trust that I've studied enough to go with my instincts now. That's what preparation, how it's helped me, is to study enough, prepare enough that you can call an audible, or if life forces you to call the audible, you've got that in your holster to go, okay, I got it. I can make that play.
It also lets you, now's a good time to talk about the sauce. I mean, it also lets you sauce things up a little bit, right? I mean, because you're admittedly the master of the sauce. I mean, you can bring the charm and the charisma, but it sounds like you're able to do that because the bones are there.
It's coming from a foundation.
Right.
So I'm not, I've had times where I've had to just wing it, and sometimes pulled it off, and sometimes, buckled my knees and fell to the ground and went, oops, that sucked. That didn't work. But I don't like that feeling of not being prepared. I don't like that feeling of every second going, oh, I hope they don't ask me this because I don't know. Or I hope they don't ask me this. And if they do ask me this, I got to keep my mouth shut so I don't prove I'm a fool. You know what I mean? I don't like that makes me sweat, and not a good sweat. I like to work a sweat up, not one where I'm anxious about not being prepared for something. Well, and being prepared for being prepared for knowing that it's not going to go the way you think. I prepare all the time. It never goes the way I think it's going to go. Right. But I write the headline all the time and then write the story on the way to the headline. And once I get there, the headline's changed. It's not the original headline, but it's generally another way of saying what I was going for.
You mentioned the headline, and we're talking about your aphorisms and bumper stickers. One of the people you thank in the book or acknowledge is your Delt brother, Roy Spence from GS. What's your affinity for advertising in the last few years, and how's that filled up your tank, and why do you like it so much?
Well, I mean, I've always considered myself a marketeer. I mean, I even threw I'm the one who created the McConaughey. I thought it needed a lyric. I thought it needed an album title.
That's the sauce.
Well, that was yeah. So I've always loved advertising. And that book that found me, The Greatest Salesman in the World. Well, if you read the book, you find out that what Og Mandino, the author's talking about, is the greatest salesman in the world is the one who's reading it. Each one of us. So, have I been pretty good at selling myself? I think I've been pretty good at that. But I also want to know what the hell I'm selling. I don't want to over leverage myself and sell you something about myself that I'm going to go, oh man, I just painted myself in a corner. I can't live up to that. So that's giving back to that foundation. I want to be selling you something I can give you. I've also, you know, rolled the dice in some situations where I didn't know what I was going to be getting into, but I trusted and hopefully had the courage to say, well, let's find out if you get the opportunity. A Time to Kill. I had read the part. I felt like, man, no, I want this lead. The director didn't. The studio wasn't going to hire me, but I said, when he said, who do you think should play the lead? I had planned out intentionally to say what I said, which was, I think I should. Now, I was nervous saying that. And I was like, you just put your ass out on the flagpole. Let's see if something bites. Well, something did bite. And then I got into it and, you know, to whatever extent pulled it off. But I didn't know completely what I would be getting into. But I did have the courage to say, well, let me give myself the best chance to find out. You know, Roy Spence and marketing. Roy and I really enjoy talking about life. Obviously, he loves to talk about purpose. I love to talk about values, the value of purpose and the purpose of values. And we love it when we come down. Roy's really good. Roy and I really, I think, have a talent for breaking something down, a long conversation or a lot of different things, down into one line or even one word or a quote, a lyric of something that feels like a verb, an aspiration. He and I are both very aspirational as well. So how do we make aspirations practical, or is a pursuit that he and I are after? You know, lately, the last year, he and I have been working on a lot of the PSAs that we put out for getting the right information out about COVID, about how to be the safest you can in COVID, calling out that even though it's being politicized, it shouldn't be a political pandemic, even though it has become politicized. Just to let everyone know that, hey, it may be being politicized, but let's be real here. It should not be being. So did we fix the problem? No, but I think we made some people aware, hopefully, to go, oh, I do see how, maybe let me see where that information is coming from. Because do they have an affiliation to win their party in November the 3rd that they may have been giving that information based on that? Oh, what lives are they counting up? And does that help their cause? Just to be aware of those things so people can make their own choices, their own minds up better. You know, I'm going forward. He's been helping me with a lot of the MOC, Minister of Culture work that I'm doing, and I want to do also in the city of Austin. I've got a shared and competent values campaign that I want to share with Austin, to sell Austin to Austinites, to remind us why we love it here, and also to educate and initiate the newcomers as to who we are and who we're not. And don't be trying to turn here into why you left there, because as we grow into this great metropolis, which we are becoming, that's not stopping. How do we maintain the core values and of our village values that we have, why we love it here? As a Roy Spence line, Austin, where a place where nobody's too good and everybody's good enough. Yeah, we can't lose that in Austin. And to use a line from Mayor Adler, we got to make sure we don't start consuming more than we create, you know, or we in times of success personally, and I look at Austin as a person, as an individual entity, we can all over leverage ourselves. We can look up and go, oh my gosh, I was most popular. And I took on this and I took on that and took on this, and I'm making C's in all of them. Well, let's make sure we don't take on too much in the name of progress to say, where we look up 10 years from now and go, who the hell are we? Who did we become? Did we sacrifice our values just for the opportunity of affluence? But did we not measure what did we, I have this line in the book. We all want to be relevant, but let's ask ourselves, relevant for what? You know, so Austin, it's a great time for Austin to check in with ourselves and ask ourselves, we want to be relevant. We are relevant, but let's ask ourselves, what are we relevant for, and what do we want to be relevant for?
Are you worried at all about losing the soul of Austin, or about how much it changed? Are you one of those people, or you just seem like you focus more on fixing it than?
No, I do. I am concerned with it. We got a lot more socialites in Austin than we used to have. I'm not sure what a socialite is.
They look real good.
They look good. They show up everywhere. They're omnipresent.
Well, I mean, the last time I ran into you was on the putting green of a public golf course about 6 blocks from where you were busted bongo and naked, I think.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to lose places, and I know it's just a golf course, but we're going to lose places like Lions, and we're going to lose part of what made our community what it is. And so, you know, how do we not do that? And, you know, considering how much it costs to live here now,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, it attracts a certain, you know, wallet size, and that doesn't mean rich people don't.
And displaces a lot without that wallet size.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's another thing. We have to, we love to parade and amplify and talk about our great diversity in Austin. Well, we're probably not as diverse fairly as we like to sometimes believe we are. And so, also this about Austin, Austin, I think we sometimes suffer from being a tad indifferent. I think, we've never looked outside of ourselves for applause or approval. But at the same time, I think we should take more ownership of our IP, of who we are. No place will open up the Rolodexes for a newcomer quicker, but let's not be foolish about that. And let's see ourselves as not just this place that, oh yeah, we're this wonderful blueberry and the tomato soup, and it's a great place to come. All you got to do is be yourself. But no, let's take a claim and say we're in a position to lead as a city. So look, we have to, with places like Lions, I don't have the answers for all these, obviously, but it's this balance between, we have to go, well, what do we need to maintain and respect about our traditions? And then what do we we don't want to lose it for nostalgia's sake. You know what I mean? There's a difference there, because things will change. It's not a time to sit here and go, oh, I'm only the Austin of old. I liked it. We were a hippie music college town. Sorry, we're not that anymore. Only. We're a lot more. We're a .com city. We're a bank city. We're a lawyer city. We're an international destination. We're a whole lot of things. And that's not going backwards anytime soon. But how can we just do that qualitatively moving forward, where we maintain that soul, which, to answer your first question, which I do fear that you got to watch it. I've seen a lot of Austin change. My wife in her time has seen Austin change from the Austin I introduced her to 11 years ago, 12 years ago. Austin for me, and I'll speak subjectively, one of the things I've always loved about Austin for me is Austin doesn't need proof. No one in Austin, if anybody comes up to me and goes, hey man, can you talk to my babysitter's sister on the phone? She's a fan, or can I have a picture? I immediately am like, you're not from here, are you? And they're like, nope. And I'm like going, yeah, I could tell. Austin's never needed proof that I was in Austin. My Austin's has always been, you're walking down that side of the street and I'm walking on this side. And you yell across the street, say, man, you got a joint? And I yell back, be a lot cooler if you did. And we crack up, and the people around us crack up, and we walk on. But that wasn't needed the proof, albeit I've had people in many places around Austin where if someone from out of town's coming up and kind of going off or making a scene about me being there, the people in the restaurant or the grocery store will actually go up and go, hey, man, it's cool. We see him all the time. And it's beautiful,
Yeah, it's good, right? It's good for you.
Yeah.
Well, I got one more big picture question, but as you know, I'm the restaurant critic here, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, a year from now, say we're in a healthier place and it feels okay to go eat in a dining room somewhere. You got 2 or 3 meals you're looking forward to getting back to eating here in town?
Oh, Hutch just closed, didn't it?
Yeah.
I missed that walk. I'll forget the number. I forget what it was called, but that guacamole bacon burger was damn good in the corner over there in that booth. Hey, you know what? Austin's got, people ask me all the time, where I go eat in Austin. I'm going to Austin. And I was like, look, number one, you kind of can't go wrong. If you're not putting out a great product in Austin, you're not open for long, or you're moved on. We've also got absolute, a lot of times somebody like in a position of an Aaron Franklin, or somebody like Tyson with Uchi or Uchiko, you get the award, you're number one, but then after that, it's really not one of the best places to eat. But actually the quality in those two places are still great and tremendous quality, and 2 of my favorite places to eat in the world, and still right up there as one of my favorite barbecue places and one of my favorite sushi places. And how the hell does that work? We're inland in Austin, Texas. How do we have such great sushi here? What are you talking about? It doesn't make sense. Oceanfront property in Arizona. But it is. And those are places, I'm looking forward to those 2 places right off the bat.
The last question before I cut you loose, and thanks for all the time. The book that it's time for you to quit acting like you or acting the part of you and be you. So
Yep.
what's the next chapter for McConaughey look like?
Well, I think what I'm working on now, and I'm going to finish this book run here for a while. I'm really engaged in this, and it is being received to a certain extent now well. So that makes me very happy and believing that what you put on the word is translating, which is what I want to do with any art I put out there. But what I'm going to finish this, catch my breath, and have a look. But what's on my mind now, and when I say that line, I want to quit acting like me and be me, is, yeah, I like acting. Yeah, I'll act again. I'll play a role. I'll play some sort of myself, some side of myself in another role, probably. But what about the big show? Life, where action was called one time when you were born, and cut will be called one time when you die. The camera's always rolling. It's happening. It's live. Quit acting like one and just be one. McConaughey. That's what I tell myself, So what is my role going to be in whatever, I'm interested in different leadership roles right now. I'm not really interested in politics, to use a line from Roy Spence, because I don't see the purpose in the politics right now. This minister of culture work may be a slipstream where it's between partisan sides and it's between denominations, and something that we can all agree on, solid stepping stones of our values with which to step forward. And something that particularly I think we're going to need coming out of this time, where we have great distrust in each other and even ourselves, where we lack belief in each other and ourselves, where our social contracts have been stripped with each other and we are now even stripping them with ourselves. The values that I'm for are not rocket science. There's things our mamas taught us, you know what I mean, that we can be reminded of to say, hey, I need a solid stepping stone to move forward. And if I do that for myself and look in the mirror and say, how can I be a little bit better? And you do that for yourself, that's how we start to make a collective change. Not a systemic, broad, legislative thing off the bat, but start with the person in the mirror. And if enough of us do that, then we have a collective change. Then we are a bright light on the map of the globe called the Earth. Then we are a leading light that says, oh, see how they're doing it down there? See how they treat each other and themselves? See how, we've got to get a lot of people come to Austin. A lot of people come to Texas, no taxes. A lot of people come to Austin because you can be yourself. Well, let's make sure that, as I said earlier, don't come here trying to turn here into why you left there, but also ask not what Austin can do for you. Ask what you can do for Austin. We got a special place on the globe, and it's got special people in it. And I think we can be bullish on that.
I appreciate it.
Enjoyed it, as always.
Congrats on the book.
Hey, thank you very much.
We'll see you around.
All right, now.